Venom 3 has already been released, and as expected, the movie has divided opinions. Some say it's quite bad, but others say it's a fun story that fulfills its goal of entertaining. Who's right? We'll find out. Today on Charlietales, I'll tell you the good and the bad of Venom 3. As always, this video contains spoilers, so consider yourselves warned. Ready? Let's go! My first good point is the friendship between Eddie and Venom. It's no surprise that the Venom franchise has shown because of the charisma of both characters. The saga has never stood out for having a deep story or incredible villains. All three movies have focused on showing us fun moments and epic battles with these two characters. With this in mind, Venom 3 repeats the formula and focuses heavily on developing the chemistry between Eddie and Venom, and it works very well. Venom 3 tells us the final adventure of Eddie and the symbiote. Both are fugitives from justice and also hunted by a universal threat, Null, the god of the symbiotes. Eddie and Venom have something called the Codex within them, and Null needs it to escape his prison. The movie is a chase story, but it also prepares the ground for the characters' farewell. At the start, Eddie and Venom are comfortable in their relationship. They've spent a year together and know how to work as a team. Throughout the chase scenes, we see various attempts to separate them, but they do everything to stay united. This forms the foundation of the story. In several scenes, we see how Venom is very protective of Eddie. Midway through, there's a very important scene where Eddie meets a family who gives him a ride to Las Vegas. But the important thing is that Eddie genuinely connects with these people, even showing a paternal side with the youngest son. Venom notices this and realizes that Eddie could be happy with a normal family. This becomes crucial because by the final battle, Venom understands that it's time to let Eddie go. Venom sacrifices himself to stop the monsters. We learn that the Codex lives inside both Venom and Eddie, but it will disappear if one of them dies. With this in mind, Venom sacrifices himself so Eddie can have a happy life. There is no greater love than that of someone who gives their life for a friend. The farewell between Venom and Eddie genuinely felt very emotional. We need to understand something. This movie isn't about the multiverse, or space monsters, or maybe even symbiotes. The story is about two friends who have shared a lot, and now must say goodbye. This is the message of the story, and Venom 3 executes this idea quite well. Some scenes even feel like a farewell to the character. For example, the dance scene with Mrs. Chang. It's a bit silly, but if you look at it closely, it feels like Venom's final pleasure in Eddie's body, a sweet way to say goodbye to this life Eddie lent him. The movie ends with Eddie Brock returning to New York. He's regained his normal life, and Venom is gone. But despite everything, the story shows Eddie happy to have known Venom. He says he'll never forget him. It's a heartfelt story of friendship and farewell, and in that sense, the movie fulfills its purpose well. My second good point is the action sequences and fan service. Venom 3 has some impressive action scenes that look great on a big screen. If you went expecting to see symbiotes fighting and explosions, the movie delivers satisfyingly. There are some amazing scenes like Eddie riding the Venom horse, or the final battle where Eddie fights the monsters using a motorcycle. The CGI is pretty good, the best in the trilogy. Perhaps the best part is the final fight, as it showcases a great variety of symbiotes. Each one is different in color and abilities. The entire theater got excited when they appeared. These symbiotes fight Null's creatures in a grand, enjoyable spectacle. I'm sad that almost all of them died. At the very end, a pink symbiote with super speed even appears. Unfortunately, we barely get to see it, but it attaches to Dr. Payne, who survives, so we might see it in a future Venom movie. In terms of action and special effects, Venom 3 does not disappoint and offers an enjoyable spectacle. Now let's move on to the bad side of the movie. My bad point is the villain. Venom 3 easily has the worst villain of the trilogy, and I'm not referring to Null. To me, Null doesn't even work as a villain. In this movie, he's more of a promise for the future. We don't even see his face until the post-credits scene. It's true that he pulls the strings of the story, but he never actually appears on Earth, and serves more as the one sending the movie's villain. The real enemies are Null's monsters, who chase Venom to take the Codex from him. These creatures are quite strong and nearly invincible, but as villains, they leave much to be desired, because they're just beasts with no personality. They don't talk and have no will. The formula resembles what we saw in Guardians of the Galaxy in 2014. In that story, we saw Thanos looking for an Infinity Stone, but since he couldn't go himself, he sent Ronan the Accuser. Officially, Thanos is the leader of the villains, but we couldn't say Thanos was the villain because he only gave the order. Ronan was the real villain of the Guardians, and although he wasn't great, he at least had personality. In Venom 3, The same thing happens with Null and his monsters, but the outcome is worse, since the creatures have no personality and feel like generic monsters. As a result, we end up with the worst villains of the saga. This could have been easily fixed by giving Null's envoys some personality. They could have pulled a character from the comics or created someone new. Instead of these monsters, they could have shown a high-ranking general or a loyal follower of Null. They could have added more interest by showing that this general fought Venom thousands of years ago, before Eddie. With this small change, the movie would have gained a lot of points, since the trilogy's closure would focus on how Venom and Eddie defeat this ancient character. It's a simple but effective way to enrich the villain. This formula isn't new. We saw it in Guardians of the Galaxy, as I mentioned, and also in Zack Snyder's Justice League. I would have much preferred this over just seeing mindless creatures. Another option would have been to give more importance to Null. I understand they didn't want to use him up since they're saving him for future movies, but they could have used him in another way. For example, by showing that these monsters were controlled by Null from space, or that he could even communicate through them. How cool would it have been to see some dialogues between Null and Venom? This would have given Null a more important role, without using him up. He could have been more relevant from his prison. However, the movie does neither of these. They decided to save Null entirely as a future promise. This doesn't sit well with me, because Sony's cinematic universe is quite chaotic, and we don't know what's going to happen. They've released movies like Morbius and Madam Web, but they've all been failures. The Venom trilogy is the only one that's been profitable so far. With that context, I think they should have given Null more importance in this story, since we don't know if we'll actually see him in a future movie. The friendship story between Venom and Eddie is great, but I think they deserved a slightly grander battle for their farewell. In conclusion, Venom 3 is an entertaining movie. It doesn't propose anything complex, or try to revolutionize the genre. However, it's clear that was never its goal. The entire trilogy is only focused on giving us a decent and fun story, with good fights and plenty of symbiotes. If you understand and agree with this, the movie delivers. Let's not kid ourselves, the movie is average, leaning towards bad, but it's still enjoyable. That's all for today. If you liked the video, you'd really help me out by leaving a like. That would be legendary. Also, remember to subscribe to see more videos like this. Thanks for listening. My name is Charlie, and I'll see you in the future.